This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Steve Jones Show here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Steve's working on getting Neal on the phone right now to talk a little Steelers and whatever else NFL news they get into. I'm sure there'll be Pittsburgh quarterback talk because I saw some of the Steelers fans online are trying to talk themselves into the greatness of Will Howard this season, and Neal and Nick Farabaugh, both are our guests on their shows, were kind of poo-pooing it last night on social media. What else? Steve talked a little bit about it in the beginning of the show that Notre Dame and Clemson are going to sign a 12-year deal, I believe it was, and they're going to play every season. Todd Golden signed a long-term extension at Florida. Going to be a very rich man after winning a national championship for the Gators.
Yeah.
Phillies are on the road tonight at Eagle 107. First pitch is at 6:10, I believe. Yes, they are, or no, 6:25. They are in Tampa Bay.
Yes, the second home of the Yankees. Again, the Yankees don't play any road games. Even when they go on the road, they play at Tampa in a stadium named after George Steinbrenner. These are their road games. I mean, those are the road games.
Well, you don't get to play. Everybody doesn't get to play their road games in their spring training stadium.
No, the Pirates. In fact, the Bradenton usually kicks the Pirates out.
Wouldn't you?
Yes.
That's the whole time Matt was talking about the Yankees. That's what I was thinking. I was like, you could be a Pirates fan, buddy.
Well, after John Parato's ringing endorsement yesterday,
I was thinking the same thing. That must be tough. That's
okay. When you're the Pirates. All right. Babe, let's flip this around for a second. The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets, the big spenders have talent, and you can make mistakes because you have talent that can make up for it. Okay? All right? Start there. But when you don't have talent, and the Pirates don't have a lot of talent, you have to be the more precise, fundamentally sound team to give yourself a chance to win. You watch them play. In general, they're not a good base running team. In general, they're not a good defensive team. In general, they miss cutoff men. In general, they don't move runners over. In general, they get into trouble pitching because they're trying to be so fine all the time and walk guys. I mean, in general, they're a fundamentally mediocre team. And at one point, for 6 years, the Pirates were here in State College. And I felt like the fundamentals of the Pirates in the 6 years that I watched them were mediocre to poor. And, I mean, that's just watching them on an everyday basis. I'd sit back every day. I'm like going, what are they doing here?
You know, you'd say regime change, but, you know, they already did that once while they were struggling in this first bit, and it hadn't worked out. I don't know where they go from here.
Go? How about, like, I don't know, up? It's the only place they can go.
True.
All right, Neal has rung in this half hour, being brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Neal Coolong, sir, first of all, welcome, and I just sense that you're not on the Will Howard bandwagon.
You know, I like to think I made this clear before the draft that, one, before we go anointing him the next Tom Brady, let's keep in mind we know what we're looking at probably a lot better with a quarterback than we were back in the year 2000. It's not that he can't be a serviceable backup level player in the NFL, but that's why they drafted him, and that's why they drafted him where they drafted him. They didn't pass on him multiple times because they thought they had their future quarterback. That often gets said about Tom Brady. Interesting note about that. Charlie Weiss, his offensive coordinator, when he first started with New England, they all said that they saw him as a mid-round type of prospect who could develop into a starter over time, and that was legitimately the track that they had him on. He would later say, we did not see the quarterback that we got until we got him on the field on Sundays. Mm-hmm. I understand that that's possible for Will Howard. It's just not what I'm going to bet on today. What I see is a quarterback who has very limited vision, playing largely in an offensive scheme that depends on its receivers to get open, the scheme of what's happening down the field, and the quarterback to anticipate one read and make a throw to what truly is the equivalent of Randy Moss and Jerry Rice in comparison to the defensive backs who are guarding them. I don't think I don't want to say it doesn't take a whole lot. Obviously, it does. He's a reasonable NFL draft pick. Mm-hmm. That does not mean he's a future starter. And what we've seen of him to this point, largely, is he's got a ton of work to do if he's ever going to be a serviceable NFL level starter. That's really all I'm saying. What annoys me, though, is the immediate assumption that I have to watch and wait for this to happen. It's like, no, he doesn't necessarily get that opportunity, okay? He's not going to get much, he's not going to get many reps to show anything, really. He's going to complete a few passes in the preseason. That doesn't mean that he's a phenomenal player, okay? Right. What he did in college is all right. I think a high-level NFL player in a similar structure with the talent that he had around him probably would have done a bit more and would have been largely seen as the greatest college player who ever lived. That's just my opinion. Obviously, I can couch that and say that I could be wrong, but I don't think that I am in this case.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that's about what I would say about him. He can make some really good, solid plays. He also makes mistakes. And this is a league that doesn't tolerate a lot of mistakes. And that's a problem. Caleb Johnson, though, and I know we touched on this a little bit last week. Warren's there, but Johnson gets picked in that third round. Neal, I watched this guy play. I thought that was a heck of a pick right there for them.
I think Caleb Johnson lacks perhaps the superlatives of the guys who were drafted ahead of them, which is to say, in a draft that's very deep on running back, which would tend to kind of push down the line a little bit to the point where position was where you had Judkins went, the first pick of the second round.
Yeah.
something like that. And then there wasn't another running back taken until Johnson, right? I think it was something like that. You have a very good player that probably fell into the third round on, to some degree, circumstantial reasons. I don't think necessarily entirely his fault or his ability that caused that. Mm-hmm. I will say you're looking at a player that can do everything at the NFL level. He just doesn't do it explosively, per se. To me, that's kind of what knocks him out of that top 60 range. You got him probably where you would have wanted to get him, but to be honest with you, I think he plays over Warren. I think he'll get more snaps than Warren because he's a better all-around back.
Yeah.
Warren's a good player. Warren's a complimentary guy that runs zone well. I don't think that Warren can run other schemes well. I think with Johnson in there, you've got the full complement, the full balance of an offense that you want to run. Warren kind of dictates that you're going to do this or that. A little bit of a tell when he's on the field. And he's a good player. I don't want to speak against him at all, but he went undrafted for a reason. He's kind of a one-pitch, one-speed kind of guy. Johnson can do everything. I think Johnson's a true three-down back. And with that, I think the Steelers are going to use him in that way. I think he'll be on the field a little bit more than Warren will. Not that Warren won't get anything, but I don't think it'll even really be particularly close. I think Johnson will clearly be the most outstanding rookie the Steelers have. And that's not to say long term. Right. Nobody else will. But I think he's going to be very productive, if not outstanding, with the Steelers.
Yeah, I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but Green Bay draws more than 600,000 total fans over the 3 days. Detroit drew over 700,000 for the 3 days. It's in Pittsburgh at Point State Park next year. And President Trump announced yesterday, they had him do it yesterday, that it's going to be on the National Mall. I mean, they used to just sit in the Marriott Marquis and hand cards. What does just the popularity of a selection tell us about the power of the NFL?
I think you look at two things if you want to truly describe the meteoric rise of the NFL over the last 50 years. In my opinion, the two biggest things are the advent of fantasy football and how that spiders across everything that they do, including the next frontier, which we're experiencing now in gambling. Yeah. And two, it's the hidden, previously underscored drama of the draft. And in retrospect, this is clear as day, but as somebody that, even as a young kid, got up to watch the chaotic scene at the Marriott Marquis or wherever it was, where the commissioner would pronounce guys' names wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
There was a year the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted a guy who had already been drafted. Yeah. Not at all the smooth, polished event that they have now.
Yeah.
But it was. It's easy to see this in retrospect, but it was a bridge between the college game, which, as you know, for a large chunk of American history was much more popular than the professional brand.
Yep.
Putting that into the much more exciting, unified NFL, and let that boil, let that grow for a little bit, the drama comes out naturally. And then, in my opinion, what kicked it all off into on the real path to prime time was Leaf versus Manning.
Yeah.
The drama that was behind that, it's a play in a lot of ways. It's a 3-act play. You've got good versus evil. You've got the wild hype of Ryan Leaf, the fun out kind of everywhere, emotional kind of guy, versus the robot, the pedigree. The NFL royalty in Peyton Manning. And to have that be as contentious and as debated as it was, I think really launched what we see today, which is much more about the storylines off of the field as opposed to on it. and then to have the results be what they were in that, which I don't think anybody expected. It created such compelling theater that now everyone's watching the draft. And from there, we always want to make it that. And then it's really kind of this almost brand loyalty thing. My guy versus your guy, this is who I want. It's exactly what the off-season needs to be for fans of a sport that is so immediate, that's so, dare to be great the way the NFL is. It all comes down to these individual moments, the height of drama. And the draft created that. And I don't think the NFL even really realized it for a long time. I mean, it got bigger, but the popularity of it truly took off when the Colts selected Peyton Manning and the Chargers selected Ryan Leaf. That buildup is really kind of what led to it all today. And in my opinion, that's one of the 10 biggest moments in NFL history for that reason. Looking at it now to what it is now, that the President of the United States just announced that the draft is going to be held at a nationally significant place the following year. Not 2 weeks from now, not a month from now, 2 years from now.
2 years.
There's a whole other draft.
Yeah.
For it to be that big of a thing really just kind of goes to show where all this has led to. And I think it was always something that was there for the NFL. And it took technology, and it took, probably getting bigger to become even bigger. They needed to put more into it. And when they did, they haven't slowed down. And, we're still here talking about how big the draft has gotten, and it gets bigger every single year. There weren't 700,000 people over 3 days at Madison Square Garden or Radio City Music Hall when it was there.
Right.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No.
They didn't even start switching into cities until recently. So that's only going to get bigger.
Next week will be the week where the networks gather for their annual meetings. So if anybody's wondering why May 14th is the big deal on schedule, that's because it's also going to be the week where college kickoffs are going to be announced as well, because the networks are all having their meetings next week. But here's the next part. You have people tuning in to watch a schedule they already know. They already know who they're playing at home and away. They just don't know the order. It takes seconds to do the order.
Yeah, I literally just had a conversation with a client in regards to our plans around the leaked schedule bits that are going to be coming out. And I'm glad you asked that, because I kind of paused and shook my head for a second. I was like, well, I can't plan for it. I don't know what's going to come and where. And there really isn't any rhyme or reason to the schedule, short of, you could expect there to be, it ties into the end of last season in primetime games very early in the season, if not in week one. And then every holiday they'll have 3 games now, and it's just becoming truly a 52-week year sport, to the point where, people are really getting into the schedule. And then we used to joke around with, internally it was, if your team was really bad, you're going 8-8. If your team is really good, they're going 12-4. They don't see a fifth loss on the schedule. Everybody gets excited. They get into it. Everyone gets better on schedule day somehow. And along with that, everyone else is worse. So you get kind of this false sense of optimism and hope, despite the fact that you know exactly who your team is going to play the next year, which is also a big thing on the final day of the season, by the way. It's another thing people love. You get to finalize your next year's opponents.
Right.
I think it's just a kind of a mini tent pole that gets us into the next point of the NFL calendar. It's one thing that's closer. They don't really give you a whole lot of access in mini camps. You don't really know what's going on there. Coaches tend to talk down to it. The Baltimore Ravens oftentimes get docked a draft pick because they make their guys do too much. It's about all the news that really comes out of mini camp. That maybe this year we'll know where Aaron Rodgers is playing, if at all. I doubt it. I wouldn't bet on that. But it's the schedule release. It's a kind of a fun, overall look at everything. I'm not sure how much it really matters unless you're looking to travel with your team. Then you're going to start making flight arrangements and things like that. But by and large, to me, it's just more indicative of this is coming soon. Hey, do you remember? And I know that you do because this was only like 5-6 years ago. The schedule will be released kind of innocuously on like a Wednesday afternoon before the draft.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't an event.
Right.
They can make it that now. And I honestly, I don't know what their numbers are. I don't know what the program gets, but I know on social media it's a very, very big thing. And the leaks will be starting soon enough, I'm sure. You know, kind of give the networks a chance to kind of gauge what the response is. And, just they heard from a source, the Ravens are at the Steelers on Christmas Day, that kind of thing, and, you know, trying to drum up interest as early as they can so that there's some of that involved with it. But an innocuous thing that gives you the opportunity to, you know, kind of dip back into football conversations post-draft and pre-dead period before training camp.
I mean, they've turned it into a show. I mean, the draft is a show. The 3 days, the schedule release, it's a show. They're just telling you what order people are playing in. Oh, goody, there are 3 games on Thanksgiving. I got it. 3 on Christmas. Great, I got it. Hey, by the way, Netflix is going to do 2 of those games. You know that? I mean, really. It's unbelievable what they've done to turn it into a show.
You want my pitch on the whole thing? We get into the point where NIL money drives the value of really good senior players versus the rookie wage scale. Something's got to give. At some point, teams are going to have to do away. I think the league and college football are going to kind of say that to some degree, we're going to have to allow players under a certain age to be drafted as well. Yeah. That increases scouting. Now, with that, I'm going to make the draft 2 months long. I'm going to make it each week. There's a pick to be made somewhere because they're going to have to increase the rounds anyway. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to do that all in 1 week. People get sick of it. But if you did it on like maybe a bi-weekly process, I think you could drum up interest of whatever player is hot, whose rights are going to be acquired by this team. You could have trades back and forth. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to go all out with it, there's still plenty of room within the draft just due to the landscape of college football, everything that's happening there. I would think the NFL could capitalize on that eventually because here you want my bold prediction. If Texas wins a national championship, I don't think the alumni are going to let Arch Manning go to the NFL, and he's going to make a lot more money if they pass a hat around, 15-gallon hat with gold doubloons, as far as we know, to keep him in school for another year and try to win another one. And he'd make more money in that one season, way more money than he would certainly in his first year as a rookie in the NFL. And maybe it could rival the total value of the contract. I don't think that's impossible. There's no regulation that says they can't spend this much money right now. That's going to end soon. So to me, the value of the outstanding college players is going to be so high, it will kind of top the draft in that sense because they're taking a step down. The hype is going to be more in the college game. What's Drew Aller worth? A lot of money. Maybe not as much as the second overall pick. Maybe he's worth more than that. So if a team can keep a guy and they have the ability to do it without any type of spending limit or salary cap, which they don't right now, the value of those players is going to increase, and that's going to cut into the value of the draft. At what point is the NFL going to have to say, look, we have to hook guys more on potential than anything else, and that means we got to open up our draft beyond 7 rounds. We're going to have to do it like 10, 11 rounds and get all college freshmen. Yeah. That industry will blow up. That will be an entire thing on its own.
Yeah, see, and I wish with the schedule, I wish the Big Ten would do this and do a whole schedule day, do the same way. I wish they would because this 6-day, 12-day thing, they're the only sport that does that kind of garbage, and that's what it is. It's garbage to the fans and it's for everybody else. Neal, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Neal Coolong, brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com and News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Hi. Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, half hour brought to you by our great friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. Ready to drink cocktails. High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal. Start thinking about Memorial Day, 4th of July. We've got some big stuff coming up. Big stuff. Yeah, both are 3-day weekends. 4th of July is a Friday this year. So start stocking up now. I think it's going to be a fun summer. Kick back and enjoy. And the pickle bar led by the Barrels and the Dills. Indeed, second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. All right. So, Sovereignty, there will be no Triple Crown winner this year. Sovereignty is not going to run in the Preakness. How about that? So,
that seems to be the new thing lately. Is the Derby winner not running the Preakness?
I mean, there could be. I mean, who knows? I mean, part of it is going to. Now, Mott did say they're going to put Sovereignty into the Belmont at Saratoga. He said that the reason they're doing it is because of long-term interests. He said, we want to do what's best for the horse.
I wonder if how many Triple Crowns? There's been 2, right?
Right.
In the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I wonder if since that happened and there's not that big pursuit of the Triple Crown anymore, if that kind of allows them to consider the horse a little more than they had been in the pursuit of the Triple Crown.
Well, this is the 4th time since Justify won the Triple Crown in 2018 that the Preakness will go on without a true shot with the Triple Crown. 2-week turnaround's tough. And this is something that Dick Girardi has talked about for years, and I agree with Dick completely on this. He said that what they should do is they should have the Kentucky Derby the first Saturday in May. He feels that the first Saturday in June should be the Preakness, and that the 4th of July should be the Belmont. Now, I realize that's too logical.
I was going to say that makes too much sense.
Which means they won't do it because it makes too much sense. But, yeah. I mean, Dick and I talked about this years ago. We talked about this, and this is before we went, 37 years between Triple Crown winners?
Did you see that note about the Derby field? That every one of them was a descendant of Secretariat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yes, it does. I mean, but you look at, 37 years between Triple Crown winners, between Affirmed and American Pharaoh, then 3 years later was Justified. Okay. All right. And the thought was maybe they should start. I mean, Dick and I talked about this before American Pharaoh won, so this goes back years. And he always felt that, like, first Saturday in May, first Saturday in June, and then the 4th of July. I mean, why not have the Belmont run on the 4th of July when people are like, hey, let's go? I mean, you're only talking about a 2.5-minute commitment to watch it. So, I don't know. Because you went, I mean, this thing has gone in spurts at times. I mean, you had 3 Triple Crown winners in the 30s. You had 4 in the 40s. Whirl Away, Count Fleet, Assault, Citation. And then you didn't have one for 25 years till Secretariat. Then Secretariat won, then Seattle Slew won, then Affirm won. And Slew and Affirm won in back-to-back years. And then it went 37 years until you got to American Pharaoh, then 3 years later Justify. I mean, it's best for the horse. I also think it would be best for the sport. But it's best for the horse. I mean, you're talking about a full month off instead of having to run in 2 weeks, then run 3 weeks after that.
Plus, everybody knows when the other 2 races are if you get into a schedule like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get, there'll be near misses in this thing like there have been over the years, but this is what third, fourth time since Justify won in 2018 that the Preakness doesn't get. Normally, it had been always, with rare exceptions, the Preakness got the Kentucky Derby winner. Now, other horses who didn't win the Derby skipped out, then came back for the Belmont or whatever. But now people are like, nah, we're not going to go to the Preakness. Okay. And Sovereignty is out. Or as Dick would say, gone. Doesn't do a lot for the sport, but Bill Mott, the trainer, his responsibility is to the horse and the horse's health and to the ownership. I mean, not to the not to the sport itself. I mean, his responsibility is to the health of the horse and to the ownership. So he has to make the decision based on that. And yeah, I have no idea how. It sounded like that was the plan the entire time, but I mean, I have no idea how the horse came back after running Saturday. Yeah. For all we know, the horse was like, okay coming back.
I was going to say, nobody cares what your plan is for the horse until you win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, suddenly out of nowhere, now they care. Yeah. No. Hey. Yeah. Well. And then, of course, we talked yesterday about the NBA G League Elite Combine and the NBA Combine. So, again, this year's draft is 59 picks. 75 players have been invited to the NBA pre-draft Combine. Yannick is in the G League Elite Camp, which is 44 players. Okay. G League guy gets about $40,500. And, for example, Walter Clayton was in the G League Elite last year, went back to Florida, and now he's in the NBA camp. So, I mean, the key is, at this point, does he get the key is whether he does well in the 2 days he's out there, and it's 2 days to move to the other combine. It does happen sometimes, but not that often. And to answer questions about the portal, he did not enter the portal. So, I know I've gone through that whole timeline so many times now, because again, part of this job, as far as I'm concerned, is to do everything we can to educate people on things like that. You saw the Ravens released Justin Tucker.
I did.
You know,
I think by their draft selections, I think that was fairly obvious that was coming.
Right, exactly. And the there's been an investigation by the league for sexual misconduct. Eric DaCosta, sometimes football decisions are incredibly difficult, and this is one of those instances. Considering our current roster, we made a tough decision to release him. Move comes less than 2 months after the team president said the Ravens would wait on making a decision on Tucker until the NFL finished up its investigation, but the uncertainty about his future, they decided in the 6th round to select kicker Tyler Loop. So, they'll let him go. Those are the ones that you're like, where you're sitting back and you're in management, and of course you don't know about this thing. And you're like, oh, geez, you got to be kidding me. He said, now, it's like, all right. Like, what's he accused of doing? What happened here? I mean, you're so much in the dark about what is going on, not going on, what's true, what's not true. It's like it's hard to make those decisions until there's finally a complete investigation about it, but you got a season to play. So you have to make the call, and they made the call to release him.
Well, not to be flip, but I also think his struggles make that a little easier too.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, if he's still Justin Tucker in air quotes, I wonder if it's a bit harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, the NFL draft, you want to know what they're estimating for the National Mall for 3 days?
$1.2 million.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's double what they got in Green Bay, right?
Yes.
I feel that might be a little light.
Could be. Now, at this point, the Commanders will still be playing in Landover. But the construction of the stadium, which is only 2 miles from the National Mall, RFK Stadium, which they'll level, but RFK Stadium is only 2 miles from the National Mall. Now, I don't think people realize how close it is. I think if I remember being in the Capitol, you look out the back of the Capitol, you can see it. RFK Stadium. Out the back.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, it's not a hard drive for the Giants, the Jets, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Steelers.
Well, let's talk about economic impact.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to that. We've talked about how many people go. What's the economic impact? The Detroit Sports Commission estimated the 2024 draft had an economic impact of $213.6 million for the city. That's for 3 days.
It's a lot of cheese.
Ooh. $213.6 million. You know, and hey, look, hey, for Washington, they'd love it. The Steelers, of course. George Kovac said that they want to use Point State Park for families. So they might be using Acrisure Stadium. Suit, of course, does not believe for a second Aaron Rodgers is showing up. He says next year it will be huge. The Steelers will have an early pick because they'll stink in 2025, and maybe they'll have a quarterback to finally replace Ben.
I don't want to be mean, but I think that's true if Aaron's there or not.
Well, hard to tell.
Well, this is true, but still not sold on Aaron Rodgers, the NFL player, currently.
Suit says no matter what, whether Aaron's there or not, they'll probably win the division now. I mean, they'll file up the entire draft thing. They'll win it. I can see that happening. They're a little short in a few areas.
If that happens, that'll be a very sad Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore in the fall.
Ooh, you got that right.
That'll mean some things went really wrong for at least Cincinnati and Baltimore.
I mean, offensively, quarterback aside, okay, let's go quarterback aside. I think the running back situation improved with Caleb Johnson. I think the wide receiver situation improved with DK Metcalf. The tight end situation is solid. Pat Freiermuth is re-signed. And now, I think their offensive line might get a little bit better because Frazier's going to his second year. Utau is going to be finally able to play, the kid from Washington that they're very high on. There's several areas where they might actually be better.
As somebody that has followed his career closely for many years, old DK and George I don't think is going to be a good fit. I think they're both a little too mercurial to get along very well and to not argue over who's getting more balls.
I can't picture that. I'm stunned.
Could also just end up in those two just posing off against each other in the field, too.
Oh, God. Oh, wide receivers. Yeah, George Kovac said, I was listening to a recent podcast, Point State, he said, on the radio at some time in the past week, I heard that Point State Park will be used for family-related events. My understanding from that discussion is that all the big crowds will be to the right of Heinz Field to view the river, to view it from the river. So that would be what, between Acrisure Stadium and PNC Park? Is he saying to the right, in other words, looking at it from Point State Park to the right? So that'd be between Acrisure Stadium and PNC Park, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, I wonder, getting a little over my skis here, but I wonder why they couldn't do a floating stage into the river.
Oh, no, you're not another one of those guys that's like trying to lobby to get into these meetings, are you?
No. Though if they use my idea, I'll take some free tickets to the draft.
Could you see on the river Goodell coming in on a barge? Oh, you know what? You know what they would use? Goodell enters the stage being brought in on the Gateway Clipper. Now, the barge thing, that would probably be me. I'm under the category of pool, pond. Pond would be good for you. Gateway Clipper, barge would be good for you.
And I mean more along the lines of what they have in Lock Haven and Sunbury, not like out in the middle of the river. Though that would be fun too.
But the Gateway Clipper, what an entrance that would be. Huh?
You know as well as I do, he could be driven in by Roberto Clemente with Franco Harris and Terry Bradshaw, and he's still getting brewed.
Oh, of course. Oh, no, exactly. Oh, no. There'd be, no. I mean, he rode a bike in this time they booed him.
Yeah.
But the Gateway Clipper brings the commissioner to the stage. What do you think? That's big. That's big.
They found the bricks. Maybe they could have had Roger find the bricks next year to get him cheered.
Oh, the Pirates. They give the word organization a bad name.